Sambatastico.
Welcome to a new episode of Brunch with the CineFiles, our strange little casual kind of Playboy after dark kind of show, but without Sammy Davis Jr. stopping by any moment. It's just a bunch of us hanging out with a special guest, having food, drink, whatever. And today's episode is a very special episode. I wanted to introduce you to Lola Rocknrolla.
Hello, everybody.
And wait, before I fully introduce Lola, this is Jeff's first brunch for the CineFiles. Usually it's Edwin and I and a guest. Now it's Jeff and I and a guest.
Yes. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, how are you?
So we welcome Jeff to his first brunch of the CineFiles. This is a very special occasion. Lola is a very special guest. Not only is she a very talented filmmaker in her own right, but ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be seeing a lot of her as she is our latest addition to the CineFiles family.
Woo!
Yes,
hello, ladies and gentlemen.
We have a female voice.
Yes, woohoo!
Bloody time. What will happen in the next ensuing months, you'll be seeing us sort of like rotating different co-hosts and everything so that other people can take a break every now and then or recover from illness or whatever is going on.
Or hangovers.
Or hangovers. Or hangovers.
I'm the resident alcoholic now.
So, indeed. So thank you, Lola. Welcome.
Sure.
We
Thanks
really
for
look forward to
everybody.
working with you in future episodes. And this is your introduction to her. And today's topic is her favorite topic, right?
One of them, yeah.
Now before we say what it is, this is a white female. And the topic is
BLAXPLOITATIon.
BLAXPLOITATIon. She's a big BLAXPLOITATIon fan.
I've made a BLAXPLOITATIon film called Nefertiti. I'm currently making Nefertiti in space. And as a genre, it's one of my favorites. It's exploitation, but you know, it's got the urban thing. There's a lot of afros. I have a lot of friends with afros, and it's just an excuse to put them in spandex and have them kicking somebody's ass.
But before we begin, let's do a toast. What we have here is a Bellini. It's a brunch drink. And shall we show them how it's made? Not only are we pleased to have a female voice added to the CineFiles family, not only is she a talented filmmaker and a big fan of film, but she passed the ultimate CineFiles test. Lola is also a professional bartender. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies
Thank you
and
very
gentlemen.
much. Am I not mistaken? This was originated in Harry's Bar in, was it Venice?
That is exactly right. It started in Venice. Yep.
Thank you, internets.
Thank you, internets. And it's called the Bellini because the painter Bellini, the color at the end looks like a painting from someone named Bellini. Thank you, internet. Okay, so these are chopped. All we have to do is we're going to make a peach puree. It should be white peaches, which we have.
And we chopped up about these are 2 white peaches, I guess. Is that, like, that's about how many you should do for like 3 people, or?
You only want about 1/3 of the peach puree, and then the rest is Prosecco.
Awesome.
So we threw the peaches in there.
Awesome.
And now all we have to do is use a little bit of this. It's going to be messy. Watch out.
Come on.
Come on.
Whoa.
There you go. Here, hold this. Okay, now you take Prosecco. You can use crappy champagne if you want to, but that's a headache. So it's probably better to do Prosecco. That's the traditional way, white peaches and Prosecco. Keeping it that way. Some thick puree we made. You can also cheat and use peach schnapps for this if you want to give yourself a diabetic coma. There you go.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody at home.
And here I go.
Oh, that's good. That's very refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Still pretty boozy, too. All right, we did all right.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you, Lola. And that's how you make a Bellini. What made you come to BLAXPLOITATIon? What was it about BLAXPLOITATIon that made you a fan of the genre?
For those that know me, they know that I'm obsessed with campy, you know, exploitation films
Right.
anyway, and BLAXPLOITATIon films really appeal to me. I'm like a kid of the 70s anyway, and like the first people I thought were foxy were always people that looked like Pam Grier. And so there's that, you know.
Right.
But all of that aside, it was, as far as independent filmmaking, it was the first chance for a lot of African-American directors to get to shoot their first feature. And yeah, there's like tits and blood and all this stuff, but a lot of them, like, you know, Sweet Sweatback'S Badassssss Song, like, you know, they actually have valid points. Like Shaft is a black superhero, you know,
right.
basically. you know? Or crime fighter, not really a superhero.
What are like your favorite blaxploitation films?
I love, well, I'm a big fan of Roger Corman, so I have to add Black Mama, White Mama. Not that it's a good film.
Which I have not seen.
Oh, it's
That's
great.
one of the Roger Corman ones I haven't seen.
Oh, it's Pam Grier, it's women in prison, everybody's naked fighting each other. It's hilarious. I love Foxy Brown. That's a great movie. I mean, Shaft, you know, Superfly.
Superfly is great.
I mean, just for the soundtracks.
I only like the soundtrack.
Yeah. You don't like the soundtrack?
No, I like the
Oh,
soundtrack. I don't like the movie.
I think out of all of them, as far as being a good film, Shaft is probably the closest thing to actually being like a good film.
Gordon Parks.
Yeah, which is, you know, he's a brilliant photographer. As
Yeah, we have frittatas. And yeah, quick segue to me making the frittata. Frittatas are actually pretty easy to make. The ingredients I'm using for this particular frittata are chorizo sausage, asparagus, cilantro, potatoes diced up, grape tomatoes, which I like. I mean, you can just take like regular plum tomatoes and chop them up, but I like working with grape tomatoes because you don't have to chop them up. And cheddar cheese, about a half a cup, and about 8 organic large eggs. Chop up the chorizo. You want about 2 sausage links, and then you put it into a skillet. Mix in a little bit of olive oil and just let that pan cook with the chopped up chorizo in it. Let those oils flow into that pan and let that sausage cook. After it's cooked for about 5 minutes, remove the sausage, and this time throw in your sliced potatoes. I like to slice them thinly because they cook faster. Let them brown on either side, and once you're done with that, chop up some asparagus, about this much that could fit into your finger, and throw that in after you throw in the potatoes, and then throw in the sausage, and then throw in the tomatoes, and then throw in your cilantro, mix it together, add some salt and pepper, always add some salt and pepper, and then finally throw in your beaten 8 large eggs. Once you've done all of that, throw in your half a cup of shredded cheddar cheese. I prefer sharp cheese. You could even throw in feta cheese. You can throw any kind of cheese you want. Heck, sometimes I just like throwing in chopped Parmesan. Make sure you have your oven preheated to around 450 degrees, and then throw your skillet with everything in it into the oven and let it bake for about 5 to 8 minutes. Keep an eye on it once it's past the 5-minute mark. Make sure you don't burn it. You don't want it to become too rubbery. Once it's done, and once you've passed that 8-minute mark and it seems to be perfectly okay, and there you go, your finished frittata. Look at that. It's awesome. Jeff, what's your take on whole blaxploitation, all that stuff?
It's like a weird genre for me, whereas I can embrace it somewhat because, again, it was the first time a lot of African-American filmmakers got to really make films, especially inside the studio system and independent. But they're rife with stereotypes.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you know, can get annoying, but sometimes when it's just so over the top, you wouldn't take it seriously anyway. Just like watching Cleopatra Jones, watching this whole film, it's entertaining, but I can't take anything seriously, so it becomes fun. Whereas, you know, like Superfly, one of my main problems with is, even though I love the soundtrack, the main storyline, I just feel like it glamorizes a drug dealer. Even though he takes on, you know, the man or the enemy, still in the end, he's still a drug dealer.
The same could be said for women. Like if you take a movie like Sheba Baby, the second frame is Pam Grier, like topless, walking towards camera. You know, another thing that's really fun with blaxploitation films is in the shooting, like, I'm guessing they didn't have a lot of money and a lot of time.
Usually.
So like, you know, if we're 2 people talking to each other in a shot, the next shot could be a close-up of you with an entirely different background. You know, and so as a B-movie director, that kind of stuff makes me squeal with laughter, and I love it, you know.
I was going to say that something like Pam Grier, it's a pity she didn't do enough topless scenes.
Yeah. You can't get Pam Grier topless enough. For me, the tough part of some of the blaxploitation films are the horrible, horrible rape scenes where there's like some hillbilly like raping someone for like a half hour. So you're like, please just burn the whole place down. And so that's the tough part for me, is like some of the violence and things like that. But given, you know, that it's like the early to mid 70s, you know, there weren't a lot of opportunities for filmmakers, and a lot of this was kind of their version of Taxi Driver. It just was an exploitation film. You know?
Or like G.I. Bro.
Blackula. I loved Blackula.
Blackula's great.
Yeah.
That's one, surprisingly, I have never watched.
Well, Blackula's hilarious because, you know, you can see some studio executive going, what's the scariest thing we could come up with? Dracula and a black guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, I mean, obviously all of this stuff you know, like the TV in the 70s, it's all very race related, and it's really like fairly backwards.
Now, Sweet Badass, that's usually is that considered the first blaxploitation?
It is considered the first blaxploitation film, yeah. And it's also considered it's considered a Black Panther training film also.
I can see why they didn't consider it.
You know, but
You've seen Sweet Badass.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I like the message. Filmmaking, when you understand what, like he was under
Sweetback. I'm saying Sweet Badass.
Okay,
Sweet
Sweetback. No, when you understand what the pressures he was under, you can understand why like some of the filmmaking might be a little more raw. Even though it has some scenes that are, to me, a little utterly ridiculous, but it was also stuff that some of the had crossover appeal while people went to go see it. Like, you know, the sex scenes, you know, after a while it's like, okay, we get it. Right. He's this big black stud.
That movie made so much money that MGM was like, holy shit, and then they made Shaft. You know, they were like, you know, because that film made money just with black audiences, you know, and I think that the studios didn't know that there was much of a market until that happened, and then there were something like 200 blaxploitation films made in the next 5 years.
Is there anything like that might be like a rare like blaxploitation film that you don't think anyone's heard of that you're a fan of?
Well, Sheba Baby is an amazing film. It's so fun, and that's with Pam Grier also.
Not seen Sheba Baby.
Sheba Baby is kind of what I based Nefertiti on. So yeah, but it is a lot of nudity, and it's, you know, it's just Pam Grier being a badass.
Well, I have a few I could suggest, even though it's not my topic. And Truck Turner with Isaac Hayes, which is hilarious, where he plays a black private eye. And I don't know if you've ever seen Isaac Hayes try to act, but
number one.
Huh?
number one.
See, trust me, you haven't seen Isaac Hayes acting until you've seen this film. JD's Revenge is actually surprisingly well made, even though it's a little ridiculous in places, but that one is really good.
Dolomite.
Dolomite is a classic. Though I prefer Petey Wheatstraw, The Devil's Son-in-Law.
Oh, I haven't seen that movie.
I haven't seen that one.
I met Dolomite once. I'm like, that guy's gigantic.
What was your meeting with Dolomite like?
We was at some film festival. I don't know. I mean, I do a bunch of exploitation film festivals, and it was like something at Arlene's Grocery, and Dolomite was there. So was Soupy Sales. It was one of the weirdest film festivals I've ever been to.
Soupy Sales?
Yeah, it's weird. Weird. And the guy that was in Phantasm, and no one recognized that guy. And I was
Angus Grimm?
Stalking him all day.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you prefer the blaxploitation horror ripoffs, or do you prefer the blaxploitation like noir, hard-boiled crime films?
I like the hard-boiled crime stuff, but usually with like a female person in the center.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, and that's another thing that blaxploitation did for us is, you know, what other movies can you see someone like Pam Grier really be the hero at that time? It's like 1975. You know what I mean?
So I take it you're a Pam Grier fan.
I'm a huge Pam Grier fan. I haven't met her yet, but I will. Well, with all of these, you have to take it. You know, you have to watch them with like 10 of your friends and possibly some booze, and you have to just like laugh as much as you possibly can. And call everyone you can honky white cracker. That's what I do. You know?
I actually like Blackula, and I like Spring Bakula Scream. I think it's interesting that they were actually trying to make a good horror film.
Yeah, they were.
Which I think is fascinating about it. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense.
You know what doesn't make any sense?
He's a prince from Africa visiting the original Count Dracula in Transylvania.
No.
That movie doesn't make any sense.
That's terrible.
It is, yeah. It's almost unwatchable even for me. And,
awful.
You know,
and there's the blaxploitation Jekyll.
I've seen that one
with Bernie Casey.
That's why I watched it.
That was not too good either.
I'd like to bring up a point.
Yes, do please.
Well, I guess after a certain time, it seemed like it was less about making the films, and when you started getting your blaxploitation stars, it was like you had Jim Brown in his series of films like Slaughter, and Slaughter's, I think, Big Score, Big Ripoff or something. And then you had Fred Williamson, who starred in a whole bunch of series, but you always knew at the end he was going to survive. That's why the only two films he made that really made an impact to me were like Black Caesar, because, you know, it starts off a typical exploitation film.
That's a Larry Cohen film, right?
But Fred Williamson starred in it. And, you know, but it also tracks the downfall of his empire towards the end. And it's a weird film, whereas it ends tragically. You think he's dead, but then they made a sequel where they kind of took back everything they said at the end, and then made, you know, this really more blaxploitation type sequel where he's fighting like one guy in New York, and then they both take a plane, fly to Los Angeles, then fight each other in the airport.
How many of these directors were actually black? Because, you know, there's Jack Hill, there's Larry Cohen we just mentioned, Roger Corman. But how many? I mean, Gordon Parks, and
Gordon Parks Jr.
and Sweet
Melvin
Sweetback.
Peebles
Melvin Peebles was the first. Melvin Peebles, sorry.
Melvin Van Peebles.
Melvin Van Peebles. But was there anyone else? Gordon Parks' son.
Well, I don't think there were a lot who made a bunch of films. I think it was more like one shots because you had Ivan Dixon, who made The Spook Behind the Door.
Right. And Sidney Poitier directed a few films, which could fall into that.
I guess if you want to like, let's do it again.
Yeah.
But of course, he'd probably take it as an insult if you called it an exploitation film.
Well, but then, you know, once we actually get past the blaxploitation thing, there's all the remakes, you know, like I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, Hollywood Shuffle,
Black Dynamite.
Yeah, Black Dynamite, which actually was really pretty good. Yeah.
Well, I would say if I had a favorite blaxploitation film, which technically isn't an exploitation film, but Cotton Comes to Harlem. I'm a huge fan of. I'm a huge fan of the writer of the books that's based on.
Chester Himes.
Chester Himes. Yep, I got that right next to my bed. We're in my apartment right now, and I have a copy of that novel right next to my bed. I swear to God. We have like two actors. We have three actors that would direct. Sidney Poitier, Ozzie Davis, and the director
Ivan Dixon.
And then you had Gordon Parks as a photographer, and then you had a guy who was his son, and then Melvin Van Peebles, who was a director, actor, writer, and then everyone else were white guys.
Yeah, but when it came to the white guys making the stuff, it's because this is still exploitation, of course. You know, like in the case of Roger Corman, he would make a movie based on the poster, based on the sales, you know, he'd get pre-sales from, you know, some Texas drive-in. You know, so he came up with the titles first. Black Mama, White Mama, great. Okay, we sold enough to make the movie. Like, he would sell the movie first without anything being shot.
Right.
You know, and then as soon as he got enough sales, he would go and make the movie in like a week and a half. And so that's why, you know, so many young directors started with him, because he'd be like, okay, here's $300,000, make sure to make your money back, you have 2 weeks.
Right.
You know, and if they succeeded, you know, there's this old story with Ron Howard. He was like, you know, if you make this film and it's good, you're never going to have to work for me again. You know, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And so for him, it was all about the money. And I think with a lot of studios, they didn't care about telling black stories. Not that these are real black stories anyway, or real people either. It's like, you know, extensions, very campy extensions of someone who's real. But they didn't care about that. What they cared about is that, oh my God, did you hear how much money that movie just made with like urban audiences? They were, you know, I mean, Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song made so much money.
That's like one of the most successful films of all time.
Yeah, exactly. Made so much money
that,
you know, they made like 20 films because of that film. You know, and some of them are good, you know, when the director actually cares, like Gordon Parks Sr. and Jr. And most of them are crap, you know? But there's definitely a discussion of, did it actually further, you know, the African-American experience, or bring it back 20 years, you know?
Well, I think it was also just, they made money because it was the first time African-Americans could see themselves in heroic roles or even represented in a film other than, oh, look, the maid, or, ooh, the comic relief.
Yeah,
so,
and that's if you're like, you know, Louis Armstrong, you get to play
exactly.
the comic
you had
relief.
to be a star.
You know, the maid was played by Billie Holiday, like as we know, you know. So.
Or what's her name that used to get like Oscar nominated all the time for playing the Southern maid.
Right,
you know,
from Gone with the Wind,
yeah.
Hattie McDaniel.
Yes, Hattie McDaniel.
I used to watch, there was a show called Night Flight. I think that was...
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember that. So that was, you know, when I got to see polyester for the first time, which I didn't understand what was going on. I thought Divine was like a real woman, and I had no idea.
So did I.
But anyway, yeah, you know? And so I think that kind of exposed me to a lot of that stuff. But, you know, I mean, I just loved those kind of movies anyway. I grew up in very, like, urban areas, and, you know, there was James Bond, but there wasn't really any, like, female badass superstars or black badass superstars. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I thought Spider-Man was black just because there were no black superheroes. And so when I was like 7 or 8, I was like, well, Spider-Man must be black. Somebody's got to be, you know, just when you
eventually he became black.
When you grow up,
ultimately.
When you grow up with like all kinds of everybody, and then the media only sort of represents, you know, this, you know, white people do everything and everybody else is in the background or whatever. You know, I think that was kind of the appeal of blaxploitation films, even though they're, you know, as I obviously got older, I was like, wow, that's racist. Wow, that's sexist. But, you know, when you see it, Before it's just like, oh, okay, that's that's a black crime fighter. How cool, and like I want to be just like that guy, or I want to be like her. She's got a machine gun and she's calling somebody a cracker, like or whatever, like not even that you even understood what those things meant.
Is.
No, of course not. Yeah,
it has salt on it.
Exactly.
And it tastes crispy and
but
good in soup.
It seemed to be a really good thing. The other person seemed very offended by it, so it's like, yeah, you know what I mean. So and there's just like a lot of ass kicking and spandex. It seemed cool.
When do you think the whole blaxploitation era ended? Like what would you say might have been the last blaxploitation? Like sincere blaxploitation film.
They're still making them.
Well, yeah, they never really ended because I mean you could also kind of call The Last Dragon a blaxploitation film.
Would you call something like, I don't know, King of New York? Or not King of New York.
Christopher Walken.
New Jack City, something like that. Would you consider that a blaxploitation?
Well, I think that was more
like the whole gangsta thing,
but it was still more dramatic than anything. I think Mario Van Peebles was trying to send a message with that film. I don't think it was going into stereotypes because you had good, bad, and you really didn't have too many comedic characters in it.
Right.
And there was like no, hey, we'll have this girl walk around naked for no reason.
Right.
So that's the only reason I wouldn't really call New Jack City like a blaxploitation film, whereas, some of the movies Mario Van Peebles started in before he directed that in the 80s, I would say would be more blaxploitation, like when rap movies were in, or the breakdancing films.
Like breaking?
Yes.
Well, but I also think that since blaxploitation was so over the top with the furry hats and the outfits and the sideburns and the black stud character and the drug dealer character and the naked women and all that stuff, by the time we got to the 80s, it was all parodies of what happened in the 70s.
Yeah.
Especially when African American people really got a voice as writers, because they could look back at the stuff from the 70s and be like, that's some bullshit. Let's
be like Robert Townsend.
You know what I mean?
Like Wayne Brothers.
Yeah, exactly.
They were all capitalizing on that. We're discussing Jackie Brown as sort of a sincere attempt at blaxploitation or homage to exploitation or a subversion of blaxploitation.
I think you're putting too much into it.
Here we go. See, we separated the white donuts from the dark donuts.
1979.
We have munchkins, people.
Oh dear, I'm taking a brown donut.
And you didn't bring watermelon, just to add to the whole
ebony and ivory.
Yeah, but now it's like, which one do I pick?
We can all live together, folks.
Desegregation. Here we go.
Do it. We can all live together.
Desegregation. So Jackie Brown, what would you? I mean, because obviously Tarantino is heavily influenced by blaxploitation, exploitation, grindhouse, the whole 9 yards. Django had some blaxploitation elements as well.
Yep.
Well, he thinks he's an honorary black man anyway, because he grew up in a all-black neighborhood and loves blaxploitation films.
That's when he went through his embarrassing to watch phase. When he went on Arsenio Hall and he's kind of calmed it down.
Well, where he was saying he was blacker than Spike Lee and stuff like that, general statements.
I wish I could have been in the room when Spike Lee heard that shit.
My thing is, there's that. Then there's some really like films that are blaxploitation, but were meant to show slavery, which is like Drum, which is the sequel to Mandingo, which is
Mandingo
horrible.
Probably the most expensive blaxploitation film of its time,
and managed to still be even more offensive than it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Wow, is that an entertainingly offensive? I mean, it's entertaining in how bad it is.
Well, where else would you see James Mason using young black boys as a footstool?
Sugar Hill.
Oh yeah, Sugar Hill.
A really interesting
blaxploitation
zombie, living dead blaxploitation flick.
With voodoo.
Well, that's how. What else?
I know. I'm just throwing that in there.
But anyway.
Again, playing on the fears. The fears. What's scarier than Dracula? A black Dracula. Zombies? Oh no, they have to do voodoo too.
They're gonna come back after we kill them.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of blaxploitation horror, you said Blackenstein's probably the worst.
Yeah, Blackenstein is truly terrible. I couldn't watch the whole thing.
You're saying that Original Gangsters is probably the
worst? For me, even though it wasn't part of the 70s,
it's supposed to be more of a homage.
Yeah, but it's still to me kind of the worst, or I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Right.
Go see I'm Gonna Get You Suck if you want to see everybody back together again, but
exactly,
you can skip Original Gangsters.
Which didn't hold up as much as I wanted it to. When I saw that when I was a kid, I thought there was no better film in the world, I'm Gonna Get You Suck. And then I just watched it again and I was like, well,
To me it's still funny as the first day I watched it.
I don't know. I was hoping that it was really gonna,
If someone was uninitiated, what film would you say initiate them with? Would you say this is the film you should see if you want to see a blaxploitation?
Shaft. I think you should start with Shaft, no?
That's a good one to start. I'd start again. I like Black Caesar.
Black Caesar's cool. I agree. Black Caesar's cool. Shaft is very cool.
Superfly.
Superfly, I wouldn't recommend first. Superfly is not quite. When you think Black,
it's all about drug dealers.
Well, yeah, it's a very grim film.
It's dark.
Just like I like the Mac, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Right.
The Mac is a lot of fun, though.
Yeah,
It's different. Superfly takes itself really seriously, and it's a grim movie. And people don't realize it. They think the Isaac Hayes soundtrack. They go in there and they think it's gonna be like Shaft. The sexy guy who happens to be a pimp. No, it's not that at all. It's a pretty grim, serious thing.
Well, Superfly is Curtis Mayfield, though.
To an extent where it's kind of its biggest flaw, I think.
Well, for me, I guess I love it just because the way New York looks in it too.
Yeah,
which you know,
the way it's shot is great, but Black Caesar is a lot of fun.
I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, the Mac is pretty fun. I mean, you have to do something with Pam Grier, though.
Well, yeah, she's like one of the heroines.
Yeah, Shiva maybe or Foxy Brown. You have to do something with Pam Grier.
You can skip Friday Foster.
Yeah.
So that wraps up this episode. I was going to say this week's episode, but this isn't a weekly show. This episode of Brunch with the CineFiles, we had frittata, we had Bellinis made courtesy of our special guest, Lola Rocknrolla, ladies and gentlemen, new member of the CineFiles. Please welcome her on our Facebook group and all sorts of stuff. Give her a big shout out. Thank you, Jeff. This was Jeff's first Brunch with the CineFiles.
Yay.
And BLAXPLOITATION. You got our recommends. We got our don't go there. And outside of that, check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Google+. Check us out on Twitter. Check out Jeff's Twitter handle. For his Unfinished Business show, his hashtag is UnfinishedB1. And check out his show's Facebook page as well. And that's about it. Thank you. We look forward to working with you considerably more.
Thanks, everybody.
And Jeff, thank you for not getting drunk off the Bellini.
You're welcome.
Keep trying.
I will.
Awesome.
Bye.
All right. So Jeff,
yes,
you're kind of peached out in terms of alcohol. Last time we saw you on camera, alcohol-wise, you had a fuzzy navel.
Yes.
You're drinking a fuzzy navel?
I was.
How old are you?
Old enough.
Like a 14-year-old girl.